teaser. Today is the 10th of May 2026 and I'm quite a bit later than I originally planned. So we're going to break this update up into a couple of segments instead of just one big long video because I don't think my microphone can really take that. So this one's going to be pretty much just cross stitching because I've got a big I've got a big pile here next to me to go through, and we're just kind of winging it because my notes are pretty much non-existent as well. This is my Lord of the Rings book, which I've been keeping my Flosstube notes in so far. But yeah, as I said, today we're just going to wing it, otherwise it's going to be at least another 2 weeks before I can get a video out. Now, plans for March and April were initially monochrome and modern folk embroidery March. So that was from Catkin and Lily from her Patreon community. So what I initially planned to do was an Alice in Wonderland piece, but then I looked through some of my order patterns and found I had a Lord of the Rings monochrome piece that I purchased really early on in my cross-stitching career, I guess. So that's what I wound up doing. This one is, so I think we're quite ready for another adventure from Etsy. I'll put the designer down below. And this one's been stitched with, so it's a 25 count sage green even weave. And the brown that I used is a Weeks Dye Works. It's colour 1288 River Rock. And this was actually part of the Christmas present from Adelaide Stitches. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that is going to look amazing in a monochrome piece on green fabric. So here we are. So just a tiny bit bigger than 4x4 inches. Initially planned to finish it in a square frame, but I've also got some jewellery boxes that might work for it as well. So I guess we'll see which one I wind up going ahead with. So that's finish number 1. Sorry, excuse all the zippers as well. And then this one was also planned for monochrome March, but also just planned as my general year-long plans. So this here is Autumn Quaker by Primrose Cottage Stitches. I can't really speak today. Primrose Cottage Stitches. So I'd finished the Valentine's Quaker in February. So in March I did the Autumn Quaker here. And that one took a little bit longer. It actually took 4 days rather than 3 for the Valentine's Quaker. But same thing, I started off on a weekend, had to use a couple of weekdays as well. So I did that after doing the Lord of the Rings piece. And this is the colour I used for it, 41440 DMC. And I've got all my threads on these floss rings. On these floss rings also by Adelaide Stitches. Now this is where the plan and the note-taking kind of went out the window. So I was still in a bit of a finishing mood after doing those 2 smalls. And I had this one, which last year I'd started when I was visiting my parents in Melbourne. So another nice small piece that I thought can probably knock out in a couple more days. So this is Be Happy by Primrose Cottage series. This is Be Happy by Primrose Cottage Stitches and part of their Bee collection. So I've done the alphabet one and another one, and then actually that's the other one that I did last year. Same piece of fabric. And this is Be Happy. So now that's also done. Really needs an iron. Also need to separate it from its body, but I thought I might be able to fit a 3rd piece onto this fabric as well. So this is 40 count platinum by Zweigart. I got a whole bunch of this while I was in Canberra. Initially just picked up a little bit to try 40 count, fell in love, got a whole bunch more. And so far all the pieces from this series I've done on there. Yep, that's number 3. And this time I did not accidentally use the wrong grey, so that's a plus as well. I haven't started the next one yet, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to do the big ones or the HAED rules, or another one of the smaller ones. I think I've got another 2 left. And now we're getting into April finishes. So I've got less of those, but they're also a little bit bigger. So this is the first one. I actually planned to do this last year. So this is Z by Letters from Nora. Was planned to be my birthday piece last year, but I left it at home in Sydney while I was off in Canberra, so that wasn't going to happen. So I did it this year instead. It just so happened as well that my birthday this year fell on the Easter long weekend. Oh, long as in quotation marks, because I was working 2 out of the 4 days on that weekend. So it was more of a normal sized weekend, except there weren't 2 consecutive days. So I had 1 day work, 1 day off, 1 day work, 1 day off. So yeah, that was my long weekend. But anyway, I thought, let's just start it on the long weekend. And then suddenly it's stitching up a lot faster than I thought, and I'm like, okay, let's try to finish it over the long weekend too. So here we are. Started, finished, beaded, backstitched. I did get a teeny bit off in the counting over here, but I don't think it's that noticeable from a distance. But yeah, that's my Z. And I forgot to say, I used all of the cord 4s for the last project as well as for this. So this one calls for all crescent colours. They didn't have a DMC conversion on the back of the chart, but I'd had all the crescent colours anyway. Can't remember whether I brought them specifically for this project or I had some of it and then decided, well, I got most, may as well fill in the rest. Either that or I just didn't want to self-convert the DMCs. Fabric also is the cord 4. It's the 32 count water lily from Witch Hilt. It's a bit stiffer than I usually like working on, but because this was a small piece, it was like pretty okay. Actually, sorry, one last thing to say. You're probably wondering why I stitch a Z when I've said my name's Akiza. Well, Akiza's not my real name per se. It actually does start with a Z. It's a mispronunciation of my name, and there are a lot of mispronunciations that I've been called, and all of them sound quite different from each other as well, surprisingly. But my real name is pretty rare and is also quite Googleable, so you would be able to find me if you put my name into Google, which is why I'm not mentioning it on the internet. So yeah, Akiza is one of the mispronunciations I quite like. It's also the name of a character from Yu-Gi-Oh! So 5Ds, who plays a similar deck that I do as well. So yeah, that's why I kind of went with Akiza. And that's why this starts with a Z and not an A. And then my last finish, which is also the reason for me filming the video now and not yesterday. I actually don't have the pattern with me, so I'll have to pop a picture up. But literally finished this about half an hour ago. And this is Beesy Spring by Cottage Garden Samplings. So also all of the cord 4s except for the fancy floss. So this floss here, that's a different one. I don't have it with me either because I can't remember where I've put the bag that has it, but I'll pop that in the description down below. So this is 18 count Celestine Ada from Picture This Plus. I just decided I like the colour when I started it off, but it also turned out to be just a teensy bit bigger than a standard sized frame. Luckily I found a frame at, I think Salvos, so at one of those secondhand stores, that if you take out the second mat, then just the first mat and the frame would just be able to squeeze this in. So hopefully that'll work out. It's got either 4 or 5 slots, so I'll have to decide what I want to do with the other ones. Whether I'm doing seasonal, as in summer, autumn, winter and spring, or whether I'm doing, I guess I'll work it out. There's 12 in this series. I've got some, oops. So I've got some of the other ones over here. So they've got a snowman, hearts with valentines, a hare for Easter. Thought this would be a good one for the strawberry moon cell. Yeah, summer seagull. And they quite like stealing chips from people as well, or at least in Australia. A squirrel with some acorns. October 31st with a crow is probably one of my favourites. And Santa. I don't think that's, yeah, that's not all of them, but they're all the ones that I've got from this series. And I'll see how much I can fit on this fabric, because this is, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to chuck that over you guys. This is quite a big piece of fabric. You can't really get it all in there. Does it say how big it is? It is, oh sorry, it's not Picture This Plus, it's Fibre on a Whim, 18 count. There's the label there. And it's 28 inches by 36 inches. I have no idea what that is off the top of my head because we use centimetres and metres here. Not inches so much. There you go, see. Tiny little finish on a big piece of fabric. But when I say tiny, that took a lot of stitching. Where are we? There we go. So one of these flowers, that took me all night. And when I mean all night, sometimes when I'm going from a day shift or an evening shift into a night shift, I stay up as late as possible and then I go to sleep about 4 or 5 a.m-ish in the morning. So I think this time I went from an evening to a night. So I would have finished around 11:30 p.m-ish and stayed up till about 5 the next morning. So during that time I was stitching this top flower over here, and quite literally took me all of that time, or all the stitchy time I used in that time frame to stitch that flower, because this fill in the middle, very deceptive. And the beehive over here, that took me all week. I started that on Monday and I just finished about 3 p.m. on Sunday. So yeah, more stitching than it looked for the size, but the end result definitely worth it. And that's all my finishes for March, April and a bit of May. I just thought I'd show you this as well. So this is how I stored my floss, or at least I stored the DMC for Beesy Spring. This is what I was doing when I was in Canberra last year. So I just brought these cardstocks. So this was the length of it, and you know, it was kind of about that high. So I cut them in half, punched holes. I got both the cardstock and the hole punch from Lincraft. Spotlight sells one as well. There's a Fiskars one that's about the same size hole punch, but I left that in Sydney as well. And you can get them from Amazon for punching foam. So it gives you a bigger hole than a regular hole punch would. So it fits a skein of DMC quite comfortably. Not the most, not the strongest solution per se, because it is cardstock, so slightly thicker than paper, but not going to hold up to years and years and years of use. But I didn't want to buy a whole bunch of plastic floss cards. So this did a pretty good job temporarily. Had all the floss in there. The ones that didn't fit, just cut off a bit of another one. And I can pop that into my master set now. Yep, so that's all my cross stitch finishes. Now, works in progress. This is most of what I did on the end of March and April. There we go. So I focused in on this page, not the numbers I called necessarily on the whip go board, but I was getting quite a lot of this page done and thought, you can't see a lot of it, it's white. Like, try to get all the colours in around it. And it sort of went into like try to get the page finished. And it's not quite finished all the way, but it's getting there. So I'm really hoping this month we manage to do that, because that would be really great. Not really caught up. I almost got there in April. I think I was 11 or 1200 stitches. I did not write that down. Yeah, so I was about 11 or 1200 stitches, so I passed the 12,000, sorry. So I passed the 10,000 mark. By the end of the month I needed to be about at 15,000, so 14,900 and change. Now I need to be closer to 18,000, so still very, very far off my goal of getting 6 pages done in a year. So we'll see how that winds up going or not going. but I was still in the mood of I kind of want to see noticeable progress, so that's why I focused in on that page. Unfortunately, the chart I picked for this stitch along is not really one that's going to show you a whole bunch of little finishes, because it's a bunch of dandelions and they're not the most they don't have the greatest profile in terms of showing up as a little finish on a stitching chart. Going to look fantastic once it's done, but at the moment it's a lot of stitches and you can't really tell what's going on necessarily from a details point of view. So lots of hanging threads. Still need to sort out this mess into one of these floss bobbins, but we're getting there. I think most of the colours that are missing are sort of up here or down here. So all of this corner, all that's all done. And then I haven't decided whether I'm going to go back into the pages as WIP go, try to get some of the colours, the bigger stitches finished, or try to get another page finished. But guess we'll see. So that's, oh, I didn't tell you what the chart is. This is Whisper of Wishes, one of the 2026 HAED starts, and that's a HAED needle winder as well. Stitching it on 28 count, 2/1 half cross, and all the called for colours. And speaking of called for colours, aside from all the light colours, there's also a bunch of blue and green, and the default colour in Pattern Keeper is green. So I've now figured out how to change that for the highlighter stitches, and I've made it hot pink, so a similar colour to that. But now it's a lot more easy to see what stitches I'm missing on that page, because at one point just could not tell what was highlighted and what wasn't. But yeah, that's my HAED piece, and I've still got it on the corner clamp of my Lowry, because now that I've finished Beesy Spring, I'll probably get back to working on this. I should say also my whips are all in a completely random order. So next up I've got a new start. This is Ruskin's Penguins by Modern Folk Embroidery. So another thing I started as part of the monochrome / Modern Folk Embroidery March. Yeah, I did start this in March still. I've used a 32 count raw linen, so similar colour to the cover photo, and I'm just using unbranded whites and blacks because I thought that would be a good way to get through some of that. So Ruskin's Penguins. And this is, oops, got it in the hoop still. Just a sec. I can say I wasn't prepared per se for this, even though I really did want to do it this weekend. This is what I've got so far. So I've got my penguin needle minder out to play again. It's lost part of its crown somewhere, so it's going to be a half crowned, whatever member of royalty this penguin happens to be. I've done all the text. I actually started in the middle, which is that motif over there. Worked my way up, did all the text. I do quite enjoy stitching text, and it was fairly easy to stitching as well. I've been stitching this while I study, so as a bit of a study break, so I could study a bit, do a letter, go back to studying a bit, do another letter, work my way up to the top right hand corner. So now I'm working on that border, and I thought from now that I've done the text, I'll try to get the first 2 pages done because that's what the text spanned over. So working on the border of that first page, and then I'll move on to the second page, and then we'll have the bottom half of the chart left to do. Really wrinkly from being in that hoop, I think. And speaking of hoop, that's what this one is. It's one of those rubbery kind of hoops. So it's got the groove in the middle there. You fit the fabric, and then you just pop the pink one on top. These I got from Craft. They do get loose fairly quickly, so that's something I found. I'll try the dishwasher trick like they suggest with the Q-snap sometimes if your snaps are getting really loose. So I'll see if that works with this once I actually have a dishwasher, which I guess is a good time to go into a bit of a segue as well. The other part of the reasons I've been delayed in stitching was I was sick at the end of March, so I had a cold, and by the time I got over that and I sort of had my voice back properly, it was the end of April, and I was getting pretty close to finishing off that Beesy spring, and decided, let's finish that, show you one more finish, do the video all together. But the other reason is that we've started packing for a potential moving of apartments. It's now less potential and more of a definitely moving. I'm just not entirely sure when, but hopefully in the next couple of months. But I was having some furniture issues, so my textbooks, I might bring them next time potentially, but they're like this thick and about 10 kilos, and they're broken 2 of my bookshelves, so I'm pretty unhappy with them for that. But I figured if I have to change big furniture items, my portable heater's also been acting up, which is why I'm in a hoodie at the moment, because it's freezing and my heater keeps on turning off. But again, I'm about to move. I don't want to get new furniture or new sort of big items that I may not need in the next place anyway. And the next place does have central heating, which is really nice, but it also comes with a dishwasher. So that's why I thought I might try my luck with putting the hoop in the dishwasher and see if that tightens things up. Next one is... okay. So I'll have to pop a photo of the cover picture for this one. This one I started in December of last year, and I wanted it to be one of my full coverage focuses, but you haven't actually seen it yet so far this year, so that probably tells you how well that's gone. This is Evolve. It's a full coverage pattern with Pokemon, so we're going to have Magikarp and Gyarados show up eventually. I'm still in the very nondescript sky area, which at the beginning I did find quite boring, but there's not really a good outline colour in the piece, so I'm just going to have to work my way through that sky until I get to some more interesting parts. This is either 18 or 20 count. I think it's 20, yeah, it's 20 count, and I'm doing 2 over 1 full cross with the cord 4 DMC. I've got a Snorlax needle minder there by Intro. And I think I just needed something really simple to stitch on one day or one evening or whatever the case was, and thought, you know what, I haven't worked on this yet so far this year, and I did want to get it, well, getting it finished seems a bit of a stretch at this point, but I did want to make some good progress on it, so I figured that was, if I was in that kind of mood, not in the mood to pull out my, was it a mood issue or was it a headache issue? Doesn't matter. I basically didn't want to stitch with a magnifier, so I figured this was a nice easy one to do a tiny bit of work in. I mainly worked in that darker purple down there, and then decided to start filling in and picked out that medium purple. So yeah, lots of sky, lots of blue and purple so far, not much else to see there really. And this is my packer organizer for this. Oops. No, I'll have to fix that later, the cards slipped there, but this one I actually did take the effort to braid. Not sure if that makes much of a difference yet or not, but I guess we'll find out. And then we've got a new start for April. This is what I was talking about last video in terms of my Alice monochrome pieces that I wanted to start. So this is Alice by New Dreams Stitch. I think I got this as a 3-pack from Etsy, so this is the one I started off with. So who in the world am I? That's the great puzzle with Alice, the rabbit, the teacup, the suits of cards, all that in the middle there. And this I've been doing on 25 count 1 over 1 full cross. I'm pleasantly surprised that I haven't needed to bring out the magnifier for this so far, and I'm using a variegated silk. Should I bring with me? Here we are. So I'm using this silk by Silks For You, and I've actually just got this on a napkin holder from a Easter clearance a few years ago. So it's got this blue, more bluey green, yellow, some pinks and oranges, and tiny bit of purple in there. So really lovely variegated pastel-y kind of colours. So enjoying how that's stitching up so far. And I've still got it in the original bag as well. So that's PL127 from Silks For You. And this is where I've gotten up to so far. So I've done the top bit of the text, or not all of it. So who in the world, and world was actually closest to the top of Alice's head accessory. So I've kind of worked my way down, started off on Alice, started the teacup, and then the rest of the text would go here. The words were okay in terms of I just followed the variegation as the text led me to. In terms of Alice, because she's such a big piece, I've actually been working in 10 by 10 columns. So one column over here, one here, and then the rest of her face and her hand was another column. The teacup's a lot smaller, so I've just gone in rows for that, but that's how I'm kind of breaking up the variegation for Alice. It does look a little bit weird at the moment, but I'm hoping that once I've got more of the colours in, it's just going to give that, you know, that old school TV static kind of picture. So that's what I was going for, because that's a bit of a lower effort in terms of managing the variegation, especially for a piece that's got quite a lot of stitching. I'd have to either do long rows or break it up somehow. So this was easier for counting as well as for trying to manage all the different colours in there. So long piece of fabric. I was actually hoping to fit all 3 of them in the same fabric. Not sure if I'm going to frame them separately or together currently, but I haven't cut the fabric. I also haven't serged it because part of packing for a move, my furniture's kind of all over the place, so I've limited my access to my sewing machine and serger at the moment. So yeah, that's where we are so far. And the other 2 patterns is this one. So this is the Alice cup, and this one. I'll probably do this one last because I have done a bookmark from New Dream Stitch before that's got a similar design to this one, and especially that cheeky grin. So I figured that's the last one I would do, but I was debating between this one, oops, cut out of the frame, this one and the one I went starting. I'll probably do all 3 with the same floss as well. And now, lucky last, this was a completely impulsive new start, and I don't really have a good reason per se for it. Aside from maybe we can consider this my moving piece. But this is Key to My Heart by Josephine Wall. So she's actually one of my most favourite artists by Heaven and Earth Designs. And also cute little penguin in there. So it's going to have a lot of blue down the bottom, but there's a lot more sort of little things to stitch up here as well. And going back to the HAED sale, not really having a lot of those popcorn little finish opportunities, I thought that's where this would be a good one. And the penguin's close enough to the bottom that I was able to count up and start the penguin straight away with the Easy Grid fabric. So that's what I've done. And I'm actually stitching this on 18 count because I had an 18 count that was big enough. And again, didn't really want to get the magnifier out. But huge piece of fabric. You can't even see all of it in the frame there. But I've started on the outline of the penguin. So that's 310 black. And then there's a lot of water around it. So this is 797, which I think most of it's around the water. But I was thinking the penguin sort of focuses in this kind of area here, and there's a lot of confetti stitching. Sorry, I don't have a needle minder on here. There's a lot of confetti stitching going on. So having that 797 and some of the other blue colours around it, framing it, is going to make it look a little bit more cohesive, I think. But also will make it easier than me trying to work out which 1 or 2 stitches are penguin, which are background. So tiny start over here, pretty impulsive. Also realised after I stitched that black that penguin is pretty big, which means aside from the whole piece being quite big, that face in the middle, sorry, I'll bring the photo back again, yeah, that face in the middle is going to be humongous as well. So I'm probably going to hang this pretty far up the ceiling rather than it being sort of closer to eye level. So that's where I got to there. This is not all the threads that I need, but that's some of them. and I'll have to decide how I'm going to store all of that as well. And would you believe they didn't even have any 823 at Spotlight? Okay, that's all of my works in progress. So I'll just go through my cross stitch haul, and I think that'll be it for today's video. I'll probably do my diamond painting as a separate video as well, just because I'm up to the point now where I've got just one diamond painting whip on the go, so it's a good opportunity to do a finished parade. And I've also started a readathon for May, so the Goobers readathon that Jashi Corinne is running with two of her friends. I think it's Monica and Rachel. So I'll probably put all of that into a single video as well, because that'll just make it a bit more cohesive. And then the last video is basically going to be everything else. So haul. So I've got some of the fabric of the month from Pole Stitches. So this is March, and that's Lollybrook. I'm getting the 16 count Ada. So this is a really pretty blue and green. I actually thought when I got this that maybe I'll do the Lord of the Rings piece on it, but then it fit really nicely onto the 25 count. And this came with a green a green floss drop. And then April, I've got Plumstone. I won't unfold this because it's more or less the same colour. And I had this orange on one side and pink on the other. And then May, I've got another green. This is a different type of green, and again it's pretty much the same. Sorry, pardon me. So this is May's fabric of the month, Sage, and also similar all the way through, so I won't unfold that. And orange flush drop. And then also got my Nashville order for this year, and thankfully, unlike last year, I didn't decide to go on an Australia-wide trip. That was actually my fault. I'd forgotten that by the time the piece got here, it might have been back in Sydney. So I left my address as the Canberra one. So I got to Canberra while I was not in Canberra. Asked Australia Post to send it over to Sydney, which they do for a fee, but it somehow got mixed up along the way, and yeah. Wound up going to multiple facilities before it finally got to me. And that was in October or November by that point. So they didn't charge me the fee because it was gone so long, but I also couldn't start a Nashville project by that point because it was way far down the track by the time I actually got it. So this is one of the ones I'm hoping to start this year. So Rise Up and Shine Sampler by Artist Designs. I did see there was quite a few people from Stitch North who are also planning on starting it. So Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, for example, started it in her recent blog. It calls for Forbidden Fibre Co, which I don't actually know if that's even available in Australia, to be honest. But what I basically did was went to the Spotlight wall, picked out a whole bunch of colours, had a fabric already that looked like it might work. So this is 28 count thistle. It looks like it's pictured as plus. So went with a purple. Oops, about to fall out. Went with a purple that's pretty similar to the chart. Picked out colours, half by vibe, half by what they looked like. I'll pop the proper list in maybe next time I show this project, because I may still switch things out. But there you go, there's one planned start. And the other one I plan to start is Pink Wren by Jodex Stitch. Actually, last year I was hoping to start the blueberry one, but it was quite a long time before it got to me. And then I just got busy and never did. So I thought I'd start off with Pink Wren instead. The other reason is actually, again, I had a fabric in my stash that was going to work for it. So I'm planning on using the cord for DMC for this one. And it's stitched on 40 count. The model is stitched on 40 count, I should say. French Hen by Roxy Flosstube. So another one, I'm not sure how easily we can get it in Australia. But I had another piece of Murky by, again, picture this plus. So this is 40 count murky linen. So quite a big piece. I'm not sure whether I'll need all of it, but I should have plenty. And this funny story about the murky, this is actually how I met Adelaide Stitches. So this is the called for fabric for the Halloween Quaker by Lila Studio. And I can't remember why, but for some reason I had 3 of these in my stash from when I ordered from 123 Stitch. So I started Halloween Quaker on one of mine. Last year Adelaide was planning on starting her Halloween Quaker as well and was looking for a fabric to match it. And because I had 3, I'm like, I don't really need 3 of the same colour. It's not the kind of colour I usually gravitate towards. So I couldn't really imagine how many more projects I was going to stitch onto one colour. So I reached out, offered her one of my pieces. At the time I was working fairly close to the Blue Mountains. So we wound up meeting up in person, swap fabrics, swap stitchy stories, and then it turned out there was a Spring Garden Festival in the Blue Mountains around the same time while I was still working at that hospital, and I was free that weekend, or at least that day. So we met up again at the Spring Festival, which was during October, and we actually started our pieces together as well, which would have been nice if I brought along, but I actually don't know where my pieces that I'm not actively working on are at the moment. Before anyone panics, they're definitely in a box. I just don't know which box is which at this point, because I tried to keep it all into like, this box has this category of things in it, but for example, the book ones got really heavy really quickly, and the way we wound up packing was, I say we, my parents were helping me pack while they were visiting. I put heavy stuff at the bottom, lighter stuff at the top, and that just meant I couldn't really keep them in categories per se. And also the way I've kept my, the way I've stored my projects at the moment, what's actually started and what's kitted and ready and intending to start are not necessarily in the same, are not necessarily split up, I should say. So yeah, part of why I had to put all my things into Notion to work out how many active works in progress I actually had and how many were stuff I intended to start and just haven't started yet. So that's my planned starts for whenever they pop up. Other haul from Nashville, I had the remaining charts for the Floral Alphabet by Jeanette Douglas, so I got those. Season in the Garden, I had a leftover one as well, so this is Spring, and I got the floss pack as well. So I think both of those series are now complete in my collection, and then picked up a few others as well. So I've got Butterflies, Flowers and Letters sampler by Twin Peak Primitives. You can probably tell by now. I like stitching letters, I like stitching words, and I like stitching floral things. So this one was right up my alley. And that's the freebie, so I won't show that one. So Silver Creek samplers, this is Whale Wisdom. Have Courage by The Proper Stitcher. I haven't heard of this designer before, but Quaker style with words, so really like that. And this one I definitely knew I was going to get. This is The Book Goddess by Tiny Modernist. I haven't started or own any of the other goddesses yet, but I figured Book Goddess was definitely a good one to start off with. Actually, that would look good on one of the fabric of the months. And then I've got The Long Mile by Rosewood Manor. Another one another designer I've got a lot of charts for. I think the only one I've started at the moment is Summer Quaker, which is on my Instagram. But I've also got one Dragonfly Dreams that's kitted up and in my pile of things to start or work on in the near future. As I said, I haven't split up my things that have been started and things that I want to start and want to focus on necessarily. Yeah, that's a long while. Yep, I think that's everything I've got from a cross stitch point of view. Next week there's the meetup with Colour Cascade Fabrics in Richmond, so I'm planning to go do that on Saturday. Still deciding what pieces I'm going to take, so I guess it'll be a surprise for the next Flosstube or Crafty Tube update. Other than that, I'm not planning on doing any of the Primrose Cottage stitches, Quakers until the next season. So I'm either going to do Christmas in July and do the Christmas one, or I'm going to do the winter one in somewhere in that June, July, August time frame. Other than that, going to continue trying to get caught up on that HAED sale, but if it stays sort of behind in the next few months, I may wind up tabling that idea, because I don't want to go, I basically don't want to get more and more behind every month and put that pressure on myself. And I haven't touched the other sale, the Oceans one, since January for the same reason. I've been trying to get one up to date, and that's just meant the other one's gone more and more behind. Aside from those Nashville starts, the next sort of medium-ish size piece I was hoping to work on finishing might be Rhythm. So you saw that one in the January update, unless I decide to pull out one of the other pieces instead. But Rhythm is on the scroll frame. It's the most easily accessible at the moment, and it definitely has not been packed away, because I found that while I was looking for the two Nashville pieces. So that's probably what's likely to be in the near future, but I am a bit of an impulse, I'm a lot of an impulse stitcher, so I will pretty much stitch what I want when I want, aside from a few plans that I can feasibly get done, but even those seem to change on the fly sometimes, so just go with the flow. Ruskin's Penguins probably is going to stay as a study stitch. That's a pretty good one for its purpose at the moment. 2 colours, lots of Quaker style motifs or fill-ins, but not sort of pure boring fill-in, so that's worked pretty well. I think that's about it. 24 hours of cross stitch is a bit of an impossibility with the work schedule at the moment, so I guess we'll have to table that idea as well. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say. I'll try to do another video next week if I can, either the diamond painting or the rest of the craft, and hopefully that will get me sort of semi-caught back up into monthly-ish updates. But I think things are going to be a little bit up in the air for a while, because I don't necessarily know what's happening when. And I've managed to get 2 weeks in a row of no one call, so then the next few weeks are not going to be that kind, unfortunately. So hopefully the weather warms up a bit, or cools down for those of you in the summer hemispheres. I'm going to go and tidy up this gigantic pile that's sitting on the couch and on the floor next to me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!